colleagues ignored his ideas. He was underpaid and overworked. Every morning, David looked in the mirror and thought, maybe they are right. Maybe I am just not good enough. His confidence was shattered. He began to believe that he was cheap. One rainy Sunday, David visited his father, Thomas. Thomas was a retired mechanic who spent his days in his dusty garage fixing old machines. He saw the sadness in his son's eyes. "Dad," David said, "I think I'm going to quit. I have no value." Thomas wiped the grease off his hands and walked over to an old wooden chest in the corner of the garage. He pulled out a small box. Inside was a watch. It looked terrible. The glass was scratched, the strap was broken, and the metal was rusty. "David," his father said, "before you quit, I want you to do me a favor. This watch is very old. I want to know how much it is worth. Go to the watch repair shop down the street and ask the owner." David didn't understand, but he obeyed. He took the rusty watch to the local repair shop. The shop owner was a busy, grumpy man. He took one look at the watch and laughed. "This piece of junk," the owner said. "The mechanism is probably dead. The glass is ruined. Look, I'll give you $5 for the metal parts." That's it. David returned to the garage, feeling defeated. "Dad, it's just scrap metal. The guy offered me $5. See, even your watch is worthless, just like me." Thomas smiled gently. "Okay, now I want you to go to the pawn shop in the city center. Ask them." David went to the pawn shop. The man behind the counter examined the watch with a magnifying glass. He shook his head. "It's old, kid. Nobody buys these anymore. It's too damaged. I can give you $10, but I'm doing you a favor." David went back to his father, frustrated. "Dad, stop wasting my time. $5, $10, it's trash." Thomas looked at his son seriously. "One last stop, David. Go to the city museum. Ask to see the curator. Tell him you have a vintage chronograph from the 1920s. David rolled his eyes. "A museum? For this rusty thing?" But he went. The museum was quiet and elegant. David felt out of place. He met the curator, an elderly man in a suit. David nervously took the rusty watch out of his pocket. "My father wanted me to show you this," he mumbled, expecting to be kicked out. The curator's eyes widened. He put on white gloves and gently took the watch. He examined it under a bright light. His hands were trembling. "My goodness," the curator whispered. "Do you know what this is?" David shook his head. "This is a rare prototype from 1924. Only 10 of these were ever made. It is a masterpiece of engineering. Even in this condition, ... It is priceless." The curator looked at David. "We have been looking for this model for years. I can offer you $1 million for this piece to include it in our collection." David stood frozen. $5, $10, and now $1 million. He ran back to his father's garage, breathless. "Dad, you won't believe it. The curator offered $1 million. He said it's a masterpiece." Thomas sat down on his stool and looked at David. "I wanted you to know that the right place values you in the right way," Thomas said. "David, at the repair shop, you were just scrap metal. At the pawn shop, you were old junk. But at the museum, you were a treasure. Don't find yourself in the wrong place and get angry if you are not valued. Those who know your value are those who appreciate you. Why are you staying in a place that treats you like $5 when you have the potential of $1 million? Psychologists call this contextual value. A diamond in the mud looks like a rock. A diamond on a ring looks like a gem. Your environment acts as a lens. If the lens is dirty, you will look dirty." David quit his job the next day. He didn't become a millionaire overnight, but he started looking for his museum. a company that respected his talent. And eventually, he found it. Are you feeling worthless today? Are you surrounded by people who treat you like the repair shop owner? Stop arguing with them. Stop trying to prove your worth to people who cannot see it. You are not broken. You are just in the wrong room. Pick up your worth and move. If you are ready to find your true value, type "I know my worth" in the comments below. Subscribe to our channel to discover more hidden treasures in life. Let me ask you a question that might annoy you. Who is the master of your life right now? You might say, "I am." But are you sure? If a stranger cuts you off in traffic and ruins your mood for the next hour, who is in control? If a rude comment from a colleague keeps you awake at night, who owns your sleep? There is an ancient Stoic truth that says, if someone can make you angry, they own you. Anger is the most seductive emotion. It makes us feel powerful, righteous, and strong. But in reality, it is a chain. It turns kings into slaves. Today, we are going to break these chains. We will explore the psychology of emotional control through the story of Mark, a brilliant chef who was building a career with one hand and destroying it with the other. Mark was not just a cook, he was an artist. At the age of 28, he was the sous chef at the Red Ember, one of the busiest restaurants in the city. When Mark cooked, the food sang. His risotto was legendary. His knife skills were faster than the eye could follow. But the kitchen of the Red Ember was not a happy place. It was a battlefield, and Mark was the general who screamed at everyone. The heat in the kitchen was intense, but Mark's temper was hotter. He demanded perfection, which is a good quality for a chef, but a terrible quality for a leader. One busy Saturday night, the pressure was at its peak. Tickets were printing non-stop. The noise was deafening. A young prep cook, nervous and shaking, accidentally dropped a tray of freshly chopped herbs. The sound of the metal tray hitting the floor made the whole kitchen freeze. Mark didn't just get annoyed, he exploded. He threw his towel on the floor. He marched over to the young cook, his face red, veins popping in his neck. "Are you blind?" Mark screamed, his voice echoing off the stainless steel walls. "You are useless. Get out of my kitchen. Get out." The young cook ran out in tears. The rest of the team worked in terrified silence. The food was perfect, but the atmosphere was toxic. That night, the owner, Mr. Henderson, called Mark into his office. "Mark," he said quietly, "you are the best cook I have ever hired. But you are a cancer to this team. People are quitting because of you. I am giving you one last chance." Mr. Henderson wrote a name on a piece of paper. "Go see Chef Antonio at Silent Lake. Spend a week with him. If he says you are cured, you can come back. If not, you are fired." Mark was insulted. He didn't need training, but he needed the job. So, the next morning, he drove to the outskirts of the city to find Silent Lake. Unlike the chaotic energy of his old restaurant, this place was eerie. It was located by a calm, misty lake. The kitchen was open, clean, and strangely quiet. There was no shouting, no clanging of pans. The chefs moved like dancers in a ballet. Standing at the pass was Chef Antonio. He was an older man with a neatly trimmed white beard and eyes that seemed to see everything. He wasn't moving fast, yet he was controlling the entire flow of the service with tiny hand gestures. Mark approached him confidently. "Chef Antonio, I am Mark. Mr. Henderson sent me. He thinks I have a temper problem. I think I just have high standards." Antonio didn't look up from the plate he was garnishing. Standards are about food, Mark. Temper is about ego. They are not the same thing. Mark frowned. "I cook with passion. Fire is part of the job." Antonio finally looked at him. Fire cooks the steak, Mark, but if the fire gets out of the stove, it burns down the restaurant. You are burning down your own house. Mark felt a sting of irritation. So, are you going to teach me how to cook calmly? No, Antonio said. I am going to put you on the service line tonight, but I have one rule. No matter what happens, you cannot speak. Not a single word. Can you handle that? Mark laughed. Silence. That's easy. But he had no idea what was coming. The service started. Antonio placed Mark at the busiest station. The orders started flying in. Mark was in his element. He was cooking fast, plating beautifully. He felt in control. But Antonio had a plan. He had secretly instructed his staff to test Mark's patience. An hour into the service, a waiter rushed past Mark and accidentally bumped his elbow hard. Mark was holding a ladle of sauce. The sauce spilled all over Mark's pristine white chef's jacket. The heat rose in Mark's chest instantly. The red mist descended. He turned around aggressively, ready to shout, "Watch where you are going." But he remembered the rule. Silence. He clenched his jaw so hard his teeth hurt. He glared at the waiter. 10 minutes later, another chef placed a dirty pan right on Mark's clean cutting board. Mark slammed his knife down. He was about to explode. Antonio walked over calmly and signaled for Mark to follow him to the back door, away from the kitchen. Outside, the air was cool. The lake was covered in fog. Mark was breathing heavily, pacing back and forth. "This is ridiculous," Mark burst out. "Your staff is incompetent. That waiter pushed me. That cook is messy. How can you work like this?" Antonio stood still, looking at the lake. "Mark, come here. Look at the water." Antonio pointed to a small wooden boat tied to the dock, bobbing gently in the water. "Mark, imagine you are rowing a boat on this lake. The fog is thick. You can't see much. Suddenly, out of the fog, another boat crashes into you. Bam!" Antonio looked at Mark. "What do you feel?" Mark replied, "I'd be furious. I'd scream at the other guy for not looking." "Okay," Antonio nodded. "You are screaming, you are angry, but then ... the fog clears, and you look into the other boat, and you realize it is empty." Antonio paused. The boat broke loose from the dock and drifted into you with the current. There is no one inside. What happens to your anger? Mark hesitated. He thought about it. Well, if the boat is empty, I can't be angry at it. It's just an accident. I would just push it away and keep rowing. Antonio smiled for the first time. Exactly. The anger vanishes because there is no enemy. There is no one to blame. But Chef Mark argued the waiter wasn't an empty boat. He was a person. He was careless. He disrespected me. Antonio shook his head gently. "Is that true? Or is that just your ego talking?" Antonio continued, his voice low and intense. "Mark, that waiter has been working a double shift to pay for his college tuition. He is tired. His legs hurt. When he bumped into you, he wasn't attacking you. He was just ... drifting. He was an empty boat caught in the current of exhaustion. And the cook who put the pan on your board, his wife is in the hospital, his mind is not here. He is empty." Mark stood silent. The wind blew across the lake. "You see," Antonio said, "the boat is always empty. When people cut you off in traffic, when they are rude, when they make mistakes, it is rarely about you. They are fighting their own battles, driven by their own storms. If you scream at them, you are just a fool, screaming at a piece of wood." That moment changed Mark's life. He realized he had spent years taking everything personally. He thought the world was attacking him, but the world was just moving, and sometimes paths crossed. Mark went back into the kitchen. He didn't become weak. He didn't stop having standards, but he stopped reacting. When mistakes happened, he fixed them. He became the calm in the center of the storm. Within a year, Mark wasn't just the best cook, he was the best leader. So, here is the lesson for you. The next time you feel the fire rising, the next time someone bumps into your ego, stop. Take a breath. Ask yourself, am I screaming at an empty boat? Because 99% of the time, you are. Do not let the actions of others control your inner peace. If you are ready to be the master of your own emotions, type "the boat is empty" in the comments below. Subscribe for more stories of wisdom. And remember, stay calm, stay strong. What is the heaviest thing in the world? Is it a mountain? Is it an anchor? No, the heaviest thing in the world is a blank page or an empty canvas. Many of us carry a heavy burden called perfectionism. We think it means we have high standards. We think it means we are dedicated. But in reality, perfectionism is just a fancy mask for fear. We are afraid to make a mistake, so we wait. We plan, we overthink, and often we never start. Today's story takes place not in a temple, but in a dusty pottery workshop. It is the story of Alina, a brilliant student who wanted to create a masterpiece, and Master Silas, the man who taught her that perfect is the enemy of good. Alina was the top student in her art history class. She knew everything about theory. She could critique a Michelangelo sculpture and explain the brushstrokes of Van Gogh. But Alina had a secret problem. She had never actually created anything with her own hands. She was terrified of making something ugly. She enrolled in the legendary workshop of Master Silas. Silas was not a polite university professor. He was a craftsman. His hands were rough. His apron was covered in dried clay, and he rarely smiled. He didn't care about theory. He cared about action. On the first day of class, Master Silas did something strange. He divided the students into two groups. He pointed to the left side of the room. "You are Group A," he said. "Your grade depends on quality. You only have to produce one pot by the end of the semester, but it must be perfect." Alina was in Group A. She was relieved. "I can do this," she thought. "I will spend months planning, designing, and refining one single masterpiece." Then Silas pointed to the right side. "You are Group B," he grunted. "Your grade depends on quantity. I don't care what your pots look like. I will weigh them on a scale. If you produce 50 pounds of pots, you get an A. If you produce 40 pounds, you get a B." The students in Group B were confused. Grading art by weight. It sounded ridiculous, but they had no choice. The weeks passed. Alina, in the quality group, became obsessed. She read books about ancient pottery techniques. She drew hundreds of sketches, but she barely touched the clay. Every time she started, she saw a tiny flaw and destroyed it immediately. "It's not good enough yet," she told herself. "I need more preparation." Meanwhile, Group B was in chaos. They were throwing clay everywhere. Their first pots were crooked, ugly, and lumpy. But they didn't stop. They needed 50 pounds, so they kept making more. They didn't have time to criticize themselves. They were too busy working. Alina looked at them with pity. "They are just making garbage," she thought. "Wait until the master sees my one perfect creation." But Alina was about to learn a painful lesson about how the human brain actually learns. Finally, grading day arrived. Alina presented her work. It was ... unfinished. Because she had spent so much time theorizing and fearing mistakes, the clay had dried out. It was a mediocre, slightly cracked bowl. She felt ashamed. Then Master Silas walked to Group B's table. Everyone expected to see a pile of junk. but they were shocked. Among the piles of pots, there were absolutely beautiful pieces. Elegant shapes, smooth surfaces, creative designs. They were far better than anything the quality group had produced. Silas picked up a beautiful vase from the quantity group and turned to Ali. "Do you know why this is beautiful?" he asked. "While you were busy theorizing about perfection, these students were busy failing. They made 100 ugly pots. But with every ugly pot, their hands learned. They learned how the clay moves. They learned from their mistakes. They didn't aim for perfection. They aimed for iteration." This story illustrates a biological fact. We don't learn by thinking, we learn by doing. When you repeat an action, your brain builds a substance called myelin around your neurons. Myelin makes signals travel faster. The quality group didn't build any myelin because they didn't do the work. The quantity group built a highway in their brains through constant repetition. Alina realized that her perfectionism was not a strength. It was a cage. By trying to avoid failure, she had avoided success. Alina went back to the wheel. She stopped trying to make a masterpiece. She decided to make garbage, and in that mess, she finally found the joy of creation. What about you? Is there a project you haven't started because you are waiting for the perfect time? Or a language you don't speak because you are afraid of having a bad accent? Remember, Master Silas, to make one perfect pot, you must first be willing to make 100 ugly ones. Your challenge today is simple. Go and do something badly. Write a bad paragraph. Draw a bad picture. Speak broken English. Just start. If you are ready to embrace the mess, type "I will start" in the comments below. Subscribe for more stories that will change the way you think. See you in the next lesson.
Let me ask you a dangerous question. Why do you feel exhausted right now? You haven't run a marathon. You haven't carried heavy stones all day. Maybe you have been sitting in your comfortable chair for hours. Yet your brain feels like it has been in a boxing match. We live in a strange time. We have more comfort than any generation in history, but we have less peace. We are physically rested, but mentally drained. Most people think the solution is more coffee or more sleep, but they are wrong. The problem isn't your energy level. The problem is the noise. Today, through the story of a man named Leo, we will uncover the invisible enemy stealing your intelligence. And I will show you a 2,000-year-old technique to shut it down. Meet Leo. Leo was a high performer, or at least he tried to be. He worked as a data analyst in a busy downtown firm. Leo believed in multitasking. He thought he could reply to emails, listen to a podcast, and write a report all at the same time. But inside Leo's head, it was a storm. His attention span was shorter than a goldfish's. He would start a task, then his phone would ding, and suddenly he was scrolling through social media for 20 minutes. He felt guilty, so he would try to work harder, which only made him more stressed. This cycle is what psychologists call cognitive overload. By 2 p.m., Leo usually felt a heavy fog in his brain. He couldn't remember simple words. He couldn't make decisions. He felt like he was wading through thick mud. He was drowning in information, but starving for wisdom. Like many of us, Leo tried to fix the problem with chemistry. "I just need a boost," he said. He started drinking triple-shot espressos. He bought smart drugs and supplements that promised laser focus. He even downloaded expensive productivity apps that gamified his tasks. Did it work? Briefly. The caffeine gave him energy, but it was anxious energy. His body was awake, but his mind was still scattered. He was like a car with a powerful engine, but no steering wheel. He was moving fast, but going nowhere. One evening, after a panic attack in the subway, Leo realized something terrifying. "I am losing control of my own mind." Leo remembered a story his grandfather used to tell about a temple of silence hidden in the misty hills. Desperate for a cure, he took a leave of absence from work. He turned off his phone for the first time in 10 years and began his journey. When he reached the temple, he found the master sitting by a small pond. The master didn't look magical. He looked ordinary. Leo bowed and spoke fast, his voice trembling with stress. "Master, my mind is broken. It is too loud. I cannot focus. I cannot sleep. Please, teach me a complex meditation. It is too loud. Give me a focus. Give me a puzzle to solve." The master opened his eyes slowly. He didn't give Leo a mantra. Instead, he picked up an empty glass jar. The master dipped the jar into the muddy pond and filled it up. The water was brown and swirling with dirt, leaves, and sand. You couldn't see through it at all. "This is your mind, Leo," the master said. "It is cloudy. It is chaotic." The master handed the jar to Leo. "Here is your task. Make this water clear. You cannot use a filter. You cannot replace the water. You must make this water clear. Do not come back until you succeed." Leo sat under a tree with the jar. He tried to catch the floating dirt with his fingers, but that only made the water muddier. He tried to hold the jar perfectly still, but his shaking hands caused ripples. He became frustrated. "This is impossible," he shouted. "Doing something requires action." But hours passed. Leo got tired. He was so exhausted that he finally gave up trying to fix the water. He put the jar down on a flat rock, and he just sat there, looking at it. Then, the miracle happened. As the jar sat on the rock, untouched, the heavy sand began to sink to the bottom. Then the smaller dirt particles followed. Slowly, very slowly, the water became crystal clear. The master returned. "You see?" he whispered. "The water wanted to be clear. Its natural state is clarity, but your constant intervention kept it muddy. This is not just a story. It is neuroscience. When you constantly feed your brain with TikToks, emails, and news, you are shaking the jar. You are flooding your brain with dopamine. Your brain has a system called the default mode network. It needs silence to process information, to settle the dirt. But if you never stop consuming, the sediment never settles. You live in a permanent state of brain fog." Leo realized his mistake. He was trying to force focus. But focus is not an act of force. It is an act of elimination. To clear the mind, you don't do more. You do less. You have to put the jar down. Leo returned to the city. He didn't become a monk living in the mountains. He kept his job, but he changed his method. Now, before he starts his work, he sits for 10 minutes doing absolutely nothing. No phone, no music, no thinking. He lets the mud settle. His colleagues are running around, stressed and drinking their fourth coffee. Leo moves slowly, but he finishes his work twice as fast. Because looking through clear water is easy, but looking through mud is impossible. Now, look at your own life. Is your jar muddy? When was the last time you put it down? Here is my challenge to you. After this video ends, do not click on the next recommended video. Just sit for 5 minutes in silence. Let your sediment sink. If you accept this challenge, write "clear mind" in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to build a stronger, sharper mind with us. The clarity you seek is already there. You just need to stop shaking the jar.
Time is a strange currency. We all have the same amount of it, yet some people build empires, while others build nothing but regrets. In a small, cluttered apartment in the heart of a busy city lived a young man named Kenji. Kenji was not stupid. In fact, he was incredibly intelligent. He had grand visions for his future. He wanted to be a writer. He wanted to learn to play the violin, and he dreamed of traveling the world. But Kenji suffered from a silent disease that affects millions of us. It wasn't a physical illness, but a mental cage. Every evening, he would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, overwhelmed by guilt. He would promise himself, "Tomorrow is the day. Tomorrow I will change everything." But when the alarm rang the next morning, the motivation from the night before had vanished like smoke. Why does this happen? Why do we feel so powerful at night, but so weak in the morning? Kenji thought he was simply lazy. He thought he lacked willpower, but he was wrong. He was fighting a biological mechanism in his brain that he didn't understand, and until he met a peculiar old master in the mountains, he was destined to lose this battle forever. Before finding the true path, Kenji tried what most people do, the all-or-nothing approach. One Monday morning, fueled by a sudden burst of inspiration, he created a brutal schedule. "I will write for 2 hours. I will exercise for 1 hour. I will study English for 1 hour," he declared. Day 1 was perfect. He felt like a new man. Day 2 was harder. His mind started to resist. By day 3, looking at his long to-do list felt like carrying a heavy stone. His brain, terrified by the massive workload, triggered a stress response. By day 4, Kenji had crashed. He returned to his old habits, feeling even more defeated than before. This is what psychologists call the false hope syndrome. Kenji realized that trying to sprint a marathon was destroying him. He sat amidst his unfinished projects, feeling a deep sense of shame. He needed an answer. Not a motivational quote, but a real solution. Rumors spoke of an old Zen temple known for training the most disciplined monks in the country. Desperate, Kenji packed a small bag and left the city. The journey to the temple was long and quiet. As he climbed the stone steps carved into the mountain, the noise of the city faded away. When he finally reached the top, he didn't find monks training with heavy weights or running endlessly. Instead, he found a scene of absolute stillness. The master laughed softly. "Work hard for hours. You are trying to lift a bull before you can lift a calf. You are greedy, Kenji. You want the result without the process." The master stood up and gave Kenji a challenge that sounded ridiculous. "If you want to stay here, you must do one thing. You must write your book, but you are only allowed to write for 1 minute a day." Kenji was insulted. 1 minute? I came all this way for this. I can write for hours if I push myself. The master's face turned serious. "No, you will write for exactly 60 seconds. When the time is up, you must stop. Even if you are in the middle of a sentence, you must put the pen down. This is the rule." Reluctantly, Kenji agreed. The first day, he sat down, wrote 2 sentences, and the timer went off. Beep, he had to stop. "This is pointless," he thought. The second day, the same thing. The third day, the same thing. But around the first week, a strange psychological shift began to happen. Because the task was so incredibly small, Kenji felt zero resistance before starting. There was no fear, no mountain to climb. But the real magic happened after the timer went off. Kenji found himself staring at the unfinished page. He wanted to continue. Being forced to stop created a tension in his mind. An open loop, his brain started thinking about the story even when he wasn't writing. By limiting the action, the master had transformed Kenji's fear into craving. One evening, the master explained the secret. "Kenji, what you are practicing is called Kazan. It means continuous improvement. Long ago, wise builders knew that you cannot build a castle in a day. If you try, you will exhaust yourself and quit. The brain," the master continued, "is designed to protect you from change. Big changes trigger fear, but small changes, the brain ignores them. By writing for 1 minute, you are sneaking past your brain's defense mechanism. You are rewiring your neural pathways without triggering the alarm." Kenji realized his mistake. For years, he had tried to fight his brain using willpower. But willpower is like a battery. It runs out. Habits, however, are automatic. The master wasn't teaching him how to write. He was teaching him how to show up. Weeks turned into months. The master allowed Kenji to slowly increase the time. 1 minute became 5. 5 became 20. 20 became an hour. But something fundamental had changed. Kenji no longer needed to force himself. Going to his desk became as natural as brushing his teeth. The heavy burden of greatness was gone, replaced by the joy of consistency. Kenji didn't write his book in a frenzied weekend. He wrote it page by page, day by day. He learned that water does not cut through rock because of its strength, but because of its persistence. Today, Kenji is no longer the boy paralyzed by fear, but his story is a mirror for all of us. We often wait for the perfect time or a massive burst of energy. We wait for tomorrow, but real change doesn't scream, it whispers. It starts with 60 seconds. So, here is the question you must answer today. What is the one thing you have been putting off? Can you do it today, just for 1 minute? Do not promise to do it forever. Just promise to do it today. If you are ready to stop fighting yourself and start building your life, type 1 minute in the comments below. Let this be your first step. And remember, to master your mind is to master your life. Subscribe to our channel for more timeless wisdom. Until next time, keep moving forward, 1 minute at a time. Let me tell you a scary truth. You can have everything: money, talent, health, and still be miserable. Why? Because of one simple mental habit: comparison. Theodore Roosevelt once said, "Comparison is the thief of joy." In the age of social media, we are constantly looking at other people as highlight reels and comparing them to our own behind the scenes. We see their smiles, their cars, their vacations, and we feel small. We feel like failures. But what if I told you that the life you envy is actually a trap? Today, we go into a dimly lit jazz club to meet a young man named Leo, who wanted to trade lives with a superstar, until he learned the terrifying cost of that trade. Leo was a guitar player, and he was good, really good. When he closed his eyes and played, he had soul, but Leo rarely closed his eyes anymore. He kept them open, staring at his phone screen. He followed a famous pop star named Jocks. Jocks was everywhere. Millions of followers, private jets, stadium tours. Every time Leo saw a post from Jocks, a poisonous feeling grew in his stomach. Why him and not me? Leo thought. I practice harder. I write better songs. But he is the king, and I am nobody playing in empty bars. This envy was eating his creativity. He stopped writing music. He just sat there, scrolling and hating. One rainy Tuesday, Leo had a gig at the Blue Note, an old underground jazz bar. He was playing with Old Man Duke, the resident pianist. Duke was 70 years old, blind, and always wore a sharp suit. He had played with the legends, but nobody knew his name anymore. And Duke seemed ... perfectly happy about it. After the set, the bar was empty. Leo slammed his guitar into its case. Another wasted night, Leo muttered. Playing for 5 people while Jocks is playing for 50,000. Old Man Duke was sipping his whiskey. He turned his head toward Leo. You sound heavy, kid. What's weighing you down? Leo exploded. Everything. It's not fair, Duke. Look at Jocks. He has the perfect life. He has fame, money, respect. I would give anything to be him. I hate this struggle. Duke laughed, a dry, raspy laugh. You want to be Jocks? The boy on the billboards. Yes, Leo said. Who wouldn't? Duke put down his glass. I knew a man who wanted to be the sun. Do you know that story? Leo shook his head. Let's play a game, Duke said. Close your eyes. I am going to grant your wish. You are now jocks. Duke began to play a haunting melody on the piano. You are jocks, Duke whispered. You are on a stadium stage. The lights are blinding. The crowd is screaming your name. You feel powerful. You are the king. Leo smiled, eyes closed. He could feel the rush. But wait, Duke continued, the music getting faster. The concert is over. You go backstage. You are alone. You can't go out for pizza because people will mob you. You have no real friends, only employees who want your money. You have a panic attack because if your next song isn't a hit, the label will drop you. You are not the king, Duke said. You are a product. Leo frowned. Okay, being a product is stressful. Then I want to be the record label owner. The guy who controls jocks. He has the real power. Duke changed the tempo. Heavy, dark chords. Done, Duke said. You are the owner. You are rich. You control jocks. But ... you have ulcers from stress. Your wife left you because you work 20 hours a day. You are the most powerful man in the room, but you are dying of loneliness. Leo shifted uncomfortably. Fine. Then I don't want to be a person. I want to be the wind. Free, powerful, above everyone. Duke played a chaotic melody. You are the wind. You can blow down trees. You are strong. But suddenly you hit a mountain. You cannot move the mountain. The mountain is stronger than you, okay? Leo cried out. Then I want to be the mountain. Unmovable, eternal. Duke played a slow, heavy bass. You are the mountain. You stand tall. But then you feel a sharp pain. Chink, chink, chink. It is a little stone cutter. He is carving you. Slowly, he is breaking you apart. The little man is stronger than the mountain. Duke stopped playing abruptly. The silence in the bar was deafening. And who is the stone cutter? Leo. Leo opened his eyes. He looked at his own hands, his calloused fingers from playing the guitar. I am, Leo whispered. Exactly, Duke smiled. You are the stone cutter. You look at the mountain, you look at the wind, and you envy them. But in the end, the one who has the power to shape his own destiny is the man with the chisel. The man doing the work. Jocks is a slave to his fame. The owner is a slave to his money. You are free to play whatever note you want. That is true power. Duke was right. Psychologists call this relative deprivation. We don't judge our happiness by what we have. We judge it by what others have. But we are comparing our insides to everyone else's outsides. Social media is a gallery of curated lies. You are envying a ghost. Leo picked up his guitar. He didn't want to be jocks anymore. He realized that his freedom was a gift, not a curse. He started playing, and for the first time in months, he didn't care who was listening. He just enjoyed the music. Stop looking at the mountain. Stop looking at the wind. Look at the chisel in your hand. Your life is yours to carve. Don't trade it for a shiny illusion. Are you ready to destroy envy? Type I am ENOUGH in the comments below. Subscribe to find joy in your own journey. How many times have you said yes when every cell in your body was screaming no? We act polite. We act nice. We shapeshift to fit into other people's expectations like liquid clay poured into a glass. We tell ourselves we are just being good people. We tell ourselves we are keeping the peace. But there is a dark, heavy price to being a chronic people pleaser. When you spend your whole life acting like someone else ... you eventually forget who you are. You become a ghost in your own life. Today, we walk down a forgotten, fog-covered alley to visit a strange shop that doesn't appear on any map. This is the story of Simon, a man who wore so many masks that he woke up one day and realized he had lost his own face. Simon was a nice guy. In fact, he was the nicest guy you would ever meet. But his niceness wasn't a virtue, it was a disguise. He was the employee who stayed at the office until 9 p.m. because his boss, Mr. Geller, dumped extra work on his desk. Simon would smile, his face stretching painfully, and say, "No problem, I can handle it," while inside, he was screaming. He was the friend who sat through boring 3-hour movies he hated just because he was terrified of picking the wrong film. He was the partner who apologized when he hadn't done anything wrong, just to end the argument. Simon believed his superpower was adaptability. He thought he was like water. But in reality, Simon was made of soft, unbaked clay. Anyone could push their thumb into him and leave a permanent mark. He absorbed everyone's stress, everyone's demands, and everyone's emotions. By the age of 30, Simon was exhausted. Not physical exhaustion, but a deep, soul-crushing fatigue. He felt like an actor trapped on a stage, performing a play that never ends for an audience that doesn't care. One rainy Tuesday evening, Simon was running an errand for a friend helping him move furniture, even though Simon had a terrible backache. He took a wrong turn down a narrow, cobblestone alleyway to escape the rain. The streetlights flickered and buzzed. At the end of the alley, a small, dusty shop window glowed with a faint orange light. The sign above the door creaked in the wind. "Vanya SMA SKS, we fix faces." Simon didn't want to go in, but a strange force pulled him toward the door. The bell chimed softly as he entered. The shop smelled of old wood, melting wax, and damp earth. The walls were covered from floor to ceiling with masks. Thousands of them. Some were laughing hysterically, some were weeping, some were twisted in rage, but they all looked disturbingly alive. Behind the high oak counter sat Madame Vanya. She was an ancient woman with eyes as sharp as needles. She was carving a piece of wood with a long silver knife. She didn't look up as Simon approached. "You are wearing a very heavy one today," she whispered. Her voice sounded like dry leaves crunching underfoot. Simon touched his cheek nervously. "Excuse me?" he asked. Vanya finally looked up. She pointed the tip of her knife at Simon's face. "The mask, the polite employee mask, it is digging into your skin. It has fused with the bone. Doesn't it hurt to smile when you are angry?" Simon stepped back, confused. I'm not wearing a mask. This is my face. I'm just tired." Vanya laughed. A cold, rattling sound. "Is it your face? Let's check." She reached under the counter and pulled out a large, oval hand mirror framed in black iron. "Look," she commanded. "Look closely." Simon took the mirror. His hands were trembling. He looked into the glass, expecting to see his brown eyes, his tired smile, his usual expression. But he gasped in horror. The mirror showed nothing. Just a grey, smooth blur. A smudge of clay where his personality should be. He had eyes, but they were empty holes. He had a mouth, but it was sealed shut. "Where am I?" Simon panicked, touching his face frantically. "Where is my nose? Where is my mouth? Where is my face?" "You traded it," Vanya said calmly, standing up and walking to a dusty shelf. She picked up a bright, overly happy mask with a frozen plastic smile. "Do you recognize this?" she asked. "This is the face you wore for your boss for 5 years. You sold your dignity for a paycheck, and you let him mold you into a doormat." She threw the mask on the floor. Crack! She picked up another one, a mask that looked concerned and apologetic. "Here is the face you wore for your parents. You studied law because they wanted a lawyer in the family. You buried your dream of being an artist under this heavy clay. You sold your soul for their approval. She threw it down. Smash. She pointed to a pile of hundreds of masks on the floor. And those are for your friends, your girlfriends, strangers on the street. You gave pieces of your raw clay to everyone you met. You carved yourself away until there was nothing left for Simon. Simon fell to his knees, tears streaming from his blank, grey face. I just wanted to make them happy. I didn't want to be selfish. I wanted to be a good person. Selfish, Vanya snapped, her voice rising like thunder. Self-care is not selfish, boy. A cup must be full before it can pour. You are an empty cup trying to quench everyone's thirst. You are serving them dust and calling it water. That is not kindness. That is a lie. Can I get my face back? Simon pleaded, his voice breaking. I don't want to be a ghost anymore. Vanya returned to the counter and placed a raw, unshaped lump of grey, wet clay in front of him. I cannot give you your face, she said. You have to build it again, from scratch. How? Simon asked. By destroying the masks, she replied. But be warned. If you destroy the nice guy mask, people might hate you. If you stop smiling when you are angry, people might leave you. Are you ready for that? Simon hesitated. The fear of rejection was terrifying, but the fear of living without a face was worse. He stood up. He walked over to the boss mask lying cracked on the floor. He remembered the unpaid overtime. He remembered the disrespect. A surge of real hot anger rose in his chest. He stomped on the mask, shattering it into dust. Suddenly, he felt a sharp pain in his jaw. The grey blur on his face shifted. A jawline formed. Strong and defined, he picked up the apologetic sun mask. He threw it against the wall. Crash! Another pain. This time in his eyes. His vision cleared. His eyes returned bright and full of fire. With every mask he destroyed, a piece of the raw clay on the counter flew back onto his face. Slowly, painfully, his real features began to form. It was a face with scars. A face with frown lines. A face that looked tired but real. Psychologists call this trait agreeableness. Being agreeable is good, but extreme agreeableness is a pathology. It stems from a deep evolutionary fear of abandonment. We think, if I say no, the tribe will kick me out, and I will die. But here is the paradox of the modern world. People don't respect yes men. We respect people who have spines. We respect people who have boundaries. Your no gives value to your yes. If you say yes to everything, your yes means nothing. Simon left the shop as the sun began to rise. The rain had stopped. He walked into his office that morning. Need this done by tonight, Simon? He grunted. The old Simon would have smiled and said yes. But the new Simon, the man with the real face, looked at the pile, then looked at Mr. Geller. No, Simon said calmly. I have my own work to finish. I cannot do this today. The silence in the office was deafening. Mr. Geller was shocked. He looked at Simon as if seeing him for the first time. Simon lost some friends that month. He stopped being invited to things he never wanted to go to anyway. But he felt lighter. He felt solid. He was no longer clay. He was stone. Are you walking around wearing a mask today? Are you suffocating just to make someone else breathe easier? Take it off. It might be scary. It might be painful. But the world needs you, the real you, with all your flaws and opinions. Type no more masks in the comments below. Subscribe to find yourself. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Think about it. How many times have you laid awake at night, terrified of a problem that might happen next month? You create a horror movie in your head. You direct it, you watch it, and you feel the pain of it. But the event hasn't even happened yet. Anxiety is paying interest on a debt you may never owe. Today, we are going to travel to the edge of the world, to a lonely lighthouse surrounded by a raging ocean. This is the story of Julian, a young man who was drowning not in water, but in his own what-ifs, and the old captain who taught him the secret of the storm. Julian was a rookie sailor assigned to the North Point Lighthouse for a month of training. He was smart, but he had a hyperactive imagination. He was a chronic overthinker. On his third night, the radio warned of a superstorm. The sky turned black. The waves, made of heavy grey clay, crashed against the rocks like angry giants. Julian was terrified. He paced back and forth in the lantern room. What if the glass breaks? He thought. What if the foundation cracks? What if the supply boat can't reach us next week and we starve? His heart raced. His palms sweated. He wasn't looking at the storm outside. He was looking at the catastrophe in his mind. Every sound of the wind sounded like a monster screaming. Julian was paralyzed by the future. He was living the shipwreck before the ship even sank. While Julian was hyperventilating, Captain Elias was sitting in his rocking chair by the wood stove. Elias had a thick white beard made of rough clay and hands that looked like tree bark. He was doing something strange given the circumstances. He was carefully brewing a pot of tea. Julian looked at him in disbelief. "Captain, how can you sit there? The waves are 40 feet high. The glass might shatter any second." Elias didn't look up. He poured the steaming amber liquid into 2 mugs. "Julian," Elias said, his voice deep and steady. "Is the glass broken right now?" Julian blinked. "No, but it could break." "Is the foundation cracking right now?" "No, but it might." Elias handed a mug to Julian. "So, right now, in this second, we are warm, we are dry, and we have tea. Why are you living in a wreckage that doesn't exist?" Julian took the cup, his hands shaking. "But you have to prepare for the worst." Elias smiled. "Preparing is action. Worrying is imagination. You are not preparing, son. You are suffering." Elias gestured to the window. "Let me tell you a story about a man falling off a cliff. A man is chased by a tiger. He runs to the edge of a cliff. He grabs a vine and swings down. Above him, the tiger growls. Below him, another tiger waits. He is trapped. Death is above and death is below. As he hangs there, holding on to the vine for his life, he sees a single wild strawberry growing from the rock face. The tigers are roaring. The vine is breaking. But the man reaches out, picks the strawberry, and puts it in his mouth. Elias looked at Julian. He tasted it, and he said, "That is the sweetest strawberry I have ever tasted." Julian was confused. "That's insane." He was about to die. "We are all about to die." "Julian," Elias replied, "the storm is always there. The tigers are always there. The future is always dangerous. But if you focus on the tiger, you miss the strawberry. This tea... This is your strawberry. Taste it." Julian looked down at his mug. He stopped looking at the window. He stopped listening to the wind. He brought the cup to his lips. He focused on the warmth of the ceramic against his fingers. He smelled the bergamot. He tasted the sweetness. For a moment, the storm disappeared. There was no fear, only the tea. He realized Elias was right. The fear existed only when his mind traveled to the next week. When he stayed in the now, he was safe. Neuroscience tells us that the brain cannot distinguish between a real threat and an imagined one. When you worry, your body releases cortisol just as if the tiger were actually biting you. By anchoring yourself in the present, senses touch, taste, Smell you cut the link to the amygdala. You turn off the false alarm. The storm raged for 2 more days. But Julian stopped pacing. He learned to trust the lighthouse. Life is a storm, my friends. There will always be waves. There will always be what-ifs. Do not let the thunder of tomorrow steal the silence of today. Look around you right now. Are you safe? Are you breathing? Is there something small and sweet you can enjoy? Don't wait for the storm to end. It may never end. Just drink your tea. Are you ready to let go of the future? Type "I am here" in the comments below. Subscribe for more peace in the chaos. How heavy is the past? It has no physical weight. You cannot put it on a scale. You cannot hold it in your hands. Yet, it is the heaviest thing a human being can carry. Some of us wake up every morning, strap a backpack filled with regrets onto our shoulders, pick up 2 suitcases filled with guilt and what-ifs, and try to walk through our day. We wonder why we are so tired. We wonder why we cannot move forward. We wonder why we are stuck. We convince ourselves that if we carry these bags long enough, maybe, just maybe, we can fix what happened. Maybe we can trade the pain for a time machine. But the universe has a strict baggage policy. Today, we travel to a foggy platform at the edge of time. This is the story of James, a man who missed every train because he refused to let go of the luggage that was crushing him. James was a traveler, or at least, he looked like one. James was a traveler, or at least, he looked like one. He stood in the middle of the Grand Central Terminal of his mind. But this wasn't a normal station. The ceiling was lost in thick grey fog that swirled like trapped ghosts. The floor was made of cracked, cold cobblestones that were wet with a rain that never seemed to stop. The clocks on the wall had no hands. They were just blank white faces staring down at him. James was holding 2 enormous suitcases. They looked like they were made of rusted iron and old, cracked leather. They were so heavy that his clay arms were stretched thin, his knuckles were white, and his back was bent into a painful arch. Sweat, looking like thick glycerin drops, rolled down his forehead and stung his eyes. Every step was a battle. Clomp, drag, clomp, drag. The sound of the heavy metal scraping against the stone floor echoed through the empty station like a scream. James wasn't waiting for a train to the Bahamas. He was waiting for the train to yesterday. He wanted to go back to 2014. To the day he made that mistake. To the day he lost her. To the day he took the wrong job. He believed that if he just waited long enough, the train would come back and he could fix it. His muscles screamed in agony. His fingers were locked around the handles, fused together like they were glued. He had been holding these bags for so long that he didn't know where his hands ended and the suitcases began. People walked past him, shadowy figures getting on trains to new opportunities or future joy. They traveled light, they moved fast. James looked at them with deep envy and bitterness. How can they just walk away? He muttered to himself, his voice raspy. Don't they care about what they lost? I care. That's why I carry this. This weight proves that I am a good person. This pain proves that I remember. A sharp whistle blew in the distance, cutting through the fog. A figure emerged from the steam. It was the station master, Arthur. Arthur was a tall, imposing man wearing a vintage uniform with gold buttons that gleamed even in the dim light. His face was weathered like a cliffside beaten by the ocean for 1,000 years. He held a brass pocket watch that ticked loudly. Tick-tock, tick-tock. He walked over to James, his footsteps making no sound on the stones. Ticket? Arthur asked, his voice calm but authoritative. James struggled to look up without dropping his bags. He gasped for air. 1 ticket to the past, please. I need to go back to the moment I decided not to move to London. I need to change it. I have the money, I have the desire. Arthur looked at James, then looked at the empty tracks disappearing into the darkness behind them. There are no trains going that way, son. The tracks behind us are broken. The bridge has collapsed. Trains only go forward from here. James shook his head frantically, panic rising in his chest like cold water. No, you don't understand. I have paid for this ticket with my suffering. Look at these bags. Look how much I am carrying. I have suffered for 10 years carrying this guilt. Surely that buys me a ride back. Surely the universe owes me a refund. Arthur sighed. It was a sad sound. He walked round James, inspecting the iron suitcases. He tapped one with his cane. It made a hollow, dull thud. Suffering is not a currency, James, Arthur said softly. You cannot buy a ticket to the past with a coin of pain. No matter how much you pay, the shop is closed. You are standing in line for a store that went out of business years ago. Suddenly, a bright, blinding light pierced through the fog. The ground shook. A massive, sleek, golden train arrived at the platform. The engine hissed, releasing clouds of white steam that smelled of fresh rain and ozone. The sign on the train read, "The Present." The doors hissed open. The inside was warm, inviting, and full of soft, golden light. It looked like peace. This is the last train for today, Arthur announced, checking his watch. It leaves in 1 minute. Get on. James's eyes widened. He wanted to get on. He hated the cold, damp station. He hated the fog. He wanted to be warm. He took a step forward, dragging his iron bags. He reached the door, but there was a problem. The suitcases were too wide. They were too heavy. He tried to push the left bag through the door. It got stuck. Clang. He tried to pull the right bag. It jammed against the frame. Bang. The entrance was designed for people, not for iron burdens. Help me. James screamed at Arthur, his voice cracking with desperation. Push me in. Make it fit. Arthur stood still. I cannot push you, and the train cannot take that cargo. This train is built for speed, not for storage. There is no room for yesterday's iron in today's carriage. But I can't leave them, James cried, tears mixing with the sweat on his face. Everything I am is in these bags. My memories, my apologies, my excuses. If I leave them, I will be empty. I will be nothing. The whistle blew again, louder this time. The doors started to close. James pushed harder. His clay skin started to crack from the strain. He was using all his strength to force his regrets into his future. But physics was against him. You cannot move forward while holding on to what is holding you back. James, Arthur shouted over the noise of the engine. Open the bags. Look at what you are fighting for. Have you ever checked what is inside? James hesitated. He hadn't opened the bags in years. He just carried them. He assumed they held gold. With trembling hands, he unlocked the rusty latches of the first suitcase. Click, click, he threw it open. He expected to see precious memories. He expected to see important documents. But the bag was filled with ... rocks. Just grey, heavy, useless, jagged rocks. On each rock, a word was carved. Mistake, shame, fear, anger. Why me? James stared at them. Rocks, he whispered. I have been breaking my back for rocks. He opened the second bag. It was filled with sand, just heavy, wet sand, labeled what ifs. It's just dead weight, Arthur said, stepping closer. It has no value. It feeds you nothing. It teaches you nothing. It only slows you down. You thought you were carrying treasures, but you were just carrying a graveyard. This moment is what psychologists call the sunk cost fallacy. We refuse to let go of something just because we have invested time in it. We think, I have been sad for so long. If I let go now, my sadness was for nothing. But there is also a neurological trap here. The brain path of rumination, replaying the past, becomes a deep highway. It feels safer to drive on that old, bumpy road than to build a new one. But James realized something in that fog. The rocks didn't define him. The rocks were just things he picked up along the way. He was the one holding them, which meant ... he was the one who could drop them. James looked at Arthur. Arthur nodded. James opened his hands. It was the hardest thing he ever did. His fingers were stiff, locked in a claw shape from years of gripping. He had to pry them open one by one. Thud. The first bag hit the floor. Thud. The second bag hit the floor. Instantly, James felt a strange sensation. He felt weirdly light. He felt dizzy. The gravity that had been crushing his spine was gone. He felt like a balloon that had just been untied. He jumped. He leaped through the closing doors of the golden train just as they snapped shut. He landed on the soft carpet inside. The train began to move. Through the window, he saw the lonely platform moving away. He saw the two rusty iron bags sitting there, alone in the fog. They looked small now. They looked silly. He waved goodbye to them. "Thank you for the lessons," he whispered. "But I don't need to carry the textbook anymore." James sat down. He ordered a coffee. For the first time in 10 years, he looked out the front window to see where he was going, instead of the rear window to see where he had been. What about you? Are you standing on the platform right now? Are you trying to force your heavy bags of regret into your future? The train is waiting, but it won't wait forever. Check your hands. If they are bleeding, it's time to let go. The past is a place of reference, not a place of residence. Are you ready to board the train? Type "I let go" in the comments below. Subscribe to Travel Lighter.
Herkese merhaba TikTok. Ben Yesu. Biliyorsunuz 5 yıldır oyun içerikleri üretiyorum. Ve 11 aydır da TikTok tarafında canlı yayınlar yapmaktayım ve bu benim için bir dönüm noktası oldu. Ve şu an sizlerin sayesinde Community Fest 2025'te global bir derece elde ettim. Epik bir olay.
Onsuz yaşanmıyor. Bu ömür nasıl geçecek? Yalvarırım yağma yağmur. Anılarım silinecek. Zaten onsuz yaşanmıyor. Bu ömür nasıl geçecek?